Hello and welcome back to the GCN Racing News Show. The Tour de France is in full flow, and at the first rest day it could well be a classic in the making. We'll recap all the action, thrills and spills there, as well as rounding up a fascinating edition of the Giro Donne. And as silly season approaches, we even have some transfer rumours to discuss. That and more on this week's Racing News Show. This week in the world of racing, we learnt that Fem van Empel's technical skills come in handy even in the most unusual moments.
So Nuska was going for a bottle, Fem ducks under it. Nice work there between the two of them.
Jai Hindley's dad is building quite the jersey collection.
I've got the Maglia Rosa now, and I'll get a Maillot Jaune off him and have them both framed together. I mean, how many dads can say that to you? That is just awesome.
Team DSM DS, Matt Winston could have a second career about to take off as a pilot.
This is your captain speaking. Phil sat next to me as a co-pilot. And in the back, looking after the refreshments for today, is Greg. We'll be serving drinks today between quarter to 15 and till 10 k's to go.
And we learnt that the 2023 Tour de France has the potential to be a vintage edition. Well, the first 9 stages have been fascinating, so let's go over 5 things we've learnt from the first week of racing. Firstly, the Pogačar-Vingegaard battle is becoming a truly historic rivalry. They've already finished 1-2 at the Tour twice and are well on their way to being the first 2 riders in the GC for a 3rd year in a row. That would equal the all-time record set by Bernardino and Joop Zoetemelk, who finished 1-2 in 1978, 79 and 82. So this would be the first time ever that the same 2 riders have finished 1-2 at the Tour de France 3 years in a row. The GC race kicked into top gear early on stage 5 and the Col de Marie Blanc. This was a replica of stage 9 from 2020, where Tadej Pogačar won his first Tour de France stage. This year, he was looking to make it number 10. A large break went up the road early, and to the shock of many, Jai Hindley managed to join the group of 36 riders, with 2 teammates as well. Ultimately, Hindley was the strongest rider on the day, dropping Felix Gall on the final climb before descending to a solo victory, not only securing stage honours, but the yellow jersey too. Behind, Jumbo-Visma were lining things out on the climb, and Sepp Kuss was on one of those days. He reduced the group to, well, just Pogačar and Vingegaard, where the Dane delivered a massive attack. Pogačar couldn't follow, and by the top, the gap was over 40 seconds. Pogačar waited for the next group of GC riders, all losing more than 1 minute to Jonas Vingegaard, who was only denied yellow by Hindley's exploits from the breakaway. Whereas for Pogačar, it was definitely a day to forget on the parcours that had been so kind to him back in 2020. Jumbo-Visma then sensed an opportunity to deliver a knockout blow the following day, and the Col de Tourmalet was on the menu. The mythical climb peaked with almost 50k still to go though, and there'd be another irregular climb to Courtrai, where the stage would finish. The breakaway featured the impressive Tobias Holland Johannesson, the offensive Nielsen Paulus, and crucially, Wout van Aert. The yellow and black Jumbo-Visma jerseys set things up for a spectacular attack on the Tourmalet, with Sepp Kuss again playing a crucial role. Jai Hindley was spat out the back in the Maillot Jaune, and Vingegaard tried to drop Pogačar with over 50 kilometres remaining in the stage. But never write Tadej Pogačar off. He was glued to Vingegaard's wheel and followed him down the descent of the Tourmalet, where he joined up with Wout van Aert and the remaining breakaway riders. Wout was in truly exceptional form and led the group to the final kilometres, and Vingegaard immediately attacked. Still seated, Tadej could follow again, and with just less than 3 kilometres remaining, Pogačar lit the race up through the flares and Vingegaard couldn't respond. He opened up 24 seconds to Vingegaard by the finish line, and as he bowed to celebrate his 10th Tour de France stage victory, the race for the yellow jersey was on, with 25 seconds now between the 2 aliens in the GC. And just to cement their alien status, no other GC rider finished within 2.5 minutes of Pogačar. Along with Carlos Rodriguez and Simon Yates, Jai Hindley was the next best. His stay in yellow was brief and no doubt very, very painful. The Vingegaard-Pogačar duel was put on hold for 2 stages before the much-anticipated Puy de Dôme. The climb returned to the Tour de France for the first time in 35 years, and its winners list is quite the read. Coppi, Bahamontes, Giamondi, true cycling legends have all won on this climb. It's remembered especially well for the inclusion in the 1964 Tour de France, where Jacques Anquetil and Raymond Poulidor scrapped for the yellow jersey. This year, Pogačar and Vingegaard made it another 2-man duel. Pogačar attacked with 1.5 kilometers left, with steep gradients all the way to the line. Vingegaard looks like he could follow, then lost a bike length, and then lost another. The gap was expanding, but seemingly in slow motion. At the top, Pogačar had put 8 seconds into Vingegaard to close the gap in the GC to just 17 seconds. That's the closest gap between the first and second at this point in the race since 2016. The duel for yellow is very much on then, so let us know in the comments below, who is your favourite to win the Tour from here? Jai Hindley is now at 2 minutes and 40 seconds in 3rd place, with the Yates brothers and the Ineos duo, Carlos Rodriguez and Tom Pidcock, next best. Shout out to Pidcock actually, because he and Simon Yates were the next best GC riders after Tadej and Jonas on the Puy de Dôme, and that for me at least is Pidcock's best climbing performance yet, and he's won on Alpe d'Huez before. Anyway, all of that went on behind the breakaway, who would compete for the stage on Puy de Dôme. So we also learnt that Mike Woods works best in silence. Well, kind of, because at the foot of the climb, he was more than 2 minutes behind Matteo Jorgensen, who was solo at the head of the race. A second group on the road featured Matej Mohoric, Nielsen Paulus and Mathieu Bourgadeau at around 1 minute, and the Woods group was seemingly out of contention. But as the roaring crowds dissipated and the road ramped uphill, Woods set off in chase. The Puy de Dôme is not a normal climb. The percentages are just absurd, and each kilometre seems to take a lifetime. Just how Mike Woods likes it. He picked off riders one by one, and soon only Jorgensen was left ahead of him. It was a North American battle for the stage, and Woods reeled in Jorgensen with less than 500 metres to go. After a brief stint of recovery on Jorgensen's wheel, Woods kicked away for good. He went on to win his first Tour de France stage at 36 years old, a popular winner for sure. After such a long solo effort though, Jorgensen was cruelly denied a podium finish by Pierre Latour, who climbed brilliantly from the Woods group, and Matej Mohoric, who passed Jorgensen literally on the finish line. Thirdly, we learnt that Jasper Disaster is no more. Jasper Philipsen earned the nickname for regularly losing random items or forgetting his cycling shoes, etc. But the Tour de France has been far from disastrous for the 25-year-old. His first chance arrived on stage 3. Jonas Rickard dragged the sensational duo of Mathieu van der Poel and Philipsen to the front in the final kilometre. There, Van der Poel delivered one of his trademark lead-outs, and Philipsen sprinted to the line to win the first sprint stage of the Tour de France. Wout van Aert tried to sprint to Philipsen's right, but the barriers impeded him, and Philipsen wasn't overly generous in the space he left for Wout, who gave up on his sprint before rolling across the line in 5th place. The jury made Philipsen wait before deciding he wasn't at fault, so the win was his. No time to celebrate for Philipsen though, with another sprinting chance on the Circuit Paul Armagnac coming up next. A number of crashes marred the finish though, with Fabio Jakobsen, Luis Leon Sanchez and Jacopo Guarnieri going down. Sanchez and Guarnieri were both forced to leave the race due to their injuries. In the sprint though, it was back-to-back wins for Philipsen. This one was closer for Alpecin-Koenig, with Caleb Ewan closing all the way to the line, but he was pipped by Philipsen, who in 2 days doubled his career Tour de France stage win tally. Phil Bauhaus was third for Bahrain Victorious, meaning we had the same podium 2 days in a row. Worth noting here though that Mathieu van der Poel was relegated for this move, which displaced Biniam Girmay. Of course, Philipsen wasn't reprimanded for this, but certainly benefited from Van der Poel's lead-out, which was deemed to be illegal by the jury. Anyway, Mark Cavendish, hunting the all-time Tour de France stage win record, of course, was 6th and 5th in those 2 stages. And that leads us into our next learning point, because we also learnt that Mark Cavendish will not break Eddie Merckx's Tour de France stage record. At least not this year. The next chance for the sprinters came on stage 7 in Bordeaux. The Manx missile won here at the 2010 Tour and arrived at the finish along with all the other key sprinters. Everyone was expecting round 3 of the Alpecin-Deceuninck sprinting masterclass, but this time Van der Poel launched a little early, and by the time his lead out was finished, Philipsen still wasn't willing to launch into the wind. Enter Mark Cavendish. He got the jump on the entire sprint field using his momentum to launch early. Philipsen jumped into his wheel, a move which Biniam Girmay and Intermarché didn't appreciate. Nonetheless, Philipsen had enough power and speed to fly past Cavendish before the finish, making it a hat-trick in week 1 of the Tour de France. Cavendish was left devastated. Here's what he had to say at the finish.
Once I kicked, started, my gears jumped from the 11 to the 12, I had to sit down. Cadence just whacks up, then it goes back to the 11. Then I can try and stand up again, then back to the 12, and then you sit down. Like, there's nothing you can do except, like, kind of hope. I'm bitterly disappointed there, like really majorly disappointed, but we keep on trying, you know.
And that is what makes this next part so gutting. The very next day, en route to Limoges, Cavendish crashed after a compression in the peloton. He writhed in pain on the ground, and immediately it was obvious that this would not be good news. A fractured collarbone meant that Cavendish's race was over, less than 24 hours after being so close to that massive, glorious moment. Now, Mark Cavendish is set to retire at the end of the season. We are going to assume that is still the case, but Alex Vinokourov has supposedly already offered Cavendish the chance to ride the 2024 Tour de France with Astana again. Anyway, what a brutal final chapter in Cavendish's Tour de France career, if this is indeed the conclusion to the story. Wishing Mark Cavendish all the best in his recovery and for the rest of the season. On the note of crashes, Steph Kras crashed out of the Tour after he collided with a fan. Terrible luck for him after an impressive start to the race. Lilian Kalmajan was also brought down the following day after a fan-related incident. Please people, if you're on the roadside, make sure you give the riders space. The stage went on though, and Philipsen proved that he was indeed beatable. Mads Pedersen delivered a stunning sprint finish on the uphill drag to secure the first Tour de France stage victory in Lidl-Trek colours. Philipsen was a close second, and Wout van Aert was left wondering what might have been after he was impeded by his own lead-out man, Christophe Laporte. Finally, we learnt that Neilson Paulus likes the breakaway. Well, maybe it's the polka dot jersey that he's enjoying. He held an early lead in the competition, and although he did lose the jersey to Felix Gall after stage 5, he was able to fight back immediately on stage 6. He was in the breakaway 2 on stage 9 to the Puy de Dôme, and 6th place at the finish line means he now has 46 points in the KOM competition. Felix Gall is second on 28 points, with Tobias Hall and Johannesson on 26 points. The two riders to really keep an eye on in this competition, though, are the two riders who aren't even thinking about the jersey. Tadej Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard have 19 and 18 points respectively, yet they could well be Paulus' greatest threat in polka dots by virtue of going for the yellow jersey. They have both won the polka dot jersey before alongside the maillot jaune. Anyway, it's an intriguing battle for the KOM competition, and I'm very much looking forward to watching that story unfold further this week. And there is plenty of exciting action coming up this week. Of course, the Tour de France continues daily on GCN+, and we have various highlights packages so you can stay up to date if you missed the race live. I think we'll see a few breakaway chances this week, a sprint stage or two, and there's multiple big GC days as well. So a bit of everything. We also have our exclusive World of Cycling show available right now on GCN+. Cy Richardson is in this chair right here to talk over the last week of racing with studio guests Ian Field and our very own Connor Dunn. Also, make sure to celebrate the summer by picking up one of the latest additions to our new French casuals range, now available at shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com. I'm a pretty big fan of this number actually. Anyway, now to the Giro Donne. We covered the first 3 stages last week, and Annemiek van Vleuten held an early lead in the GC. She was among the 3 riders who escaped on stage 4. Elisa Longo Borghini and Veronica Ewers were the other 2. It came down to a sprint finish, and Longo Borghini was the fastest, securing Lidl-Trek's first victory, beating Mads Pedersen by 5 days. The good fortune didn't last for Longo Borghini though. She crashed out spectacularly the following day. She did get back on her bike, luckily, and finished the stage. Although she didn't suffer any fractures, she was in considerable pain the following day and decided with her team not to start the stage. At the time of her crash, Longo Borghini had been chasing Antonia Niedermauer with Annemiek van Vleuten. Now, just a 1v1 battle, Van Vleuten had the Canyon SRAM rider in her sights. Just 20 years old, Niedermauer did enough to hold off AVV to secure the biggest victory of her career so far. Van Vleuten finished more than 1 minute ahead of any other rider, asserting her dominant position in the GC. That position was made, well, even more assertive when Van Vleuten won the following day in Canelli. She finished ahead of Lorena Wiebes and Liane Lippert on the uphill finish. The main change in the GC was the loss of Niedermauer. After her fine ride just 1 day prior, the German crashed hard and was forced to abandon the race. As she put it herself on her Instagram, from the highest high to the lowest low. As if we needed to be reminded, cycling can be a brutal sport. Veronica Ewers and Juliette Labousse now held the 2 podium positions, with Gaia Reolini in close pursuit. Another uphill finish awaited on stage 7 in Alassio. After Mavi Garcia attacked, Van Vleuten went with just over 10 kilometres left to thin the group considerably. Labousse and Reolini were the only riders who could follow. Van Vleuten then delivered her decisive attack on the final climb to win her 3rd stage of the race. Labousse and Reolini both jumped Ewers in the GC though. On to the penultimate stage now, and we had a reduced sprint finish in Sassari. Marianne Vos was in the group and looked poised to take her 33rd remarkable career stage win at the Giro Donne. But a mechanical issue seemed to put pay to her chances. Instead, Hungarian champion Blanka Vas outsprinted Chloe Dygert to win her 2nd Women's World Tour race, less than a month after her first at the Tour de Suisse. Still just 21 years old, Blanka Vas is realising her potential this year. She's been on my radar at least since she was 4th at the 2021 World Champs road race in Leuven, having just turned 20 years old. Great to see. One final stage then, and a chance for the sprinters. Lorena Wiebes had left the Giro at this point to focus on the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. That would have buoyed the other sprinters for sure. Among them, Chiara Consonni, who won the final stage of the Giro Donne for a 2nd year in a row. Marianne Vos was denied, making it the first time that Vos has failed to win a stage at the Giro Donne, in this her 13th start at the race. But the race was all about Annemiek van Vleuten. She won the GC by almost 4 minutes, winning the QOM and points competitions too. Now, where does this leave her in the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift pecking order? Is she now the favourite, ahead of Demi Vollering, who skipped the Giro Donne to focus on the Tour? I have to say, before the race, I would have said Vollering was the big favourite, and although she wasn't here, AVV looks well and truly back to her dominant best. Let us know who you think is the favourite in the comments below. In other news now, Sepp van Marke has retired from the sport after scar tissue was discovered on his heart. Van Marke won Omloop Het Nieuwsblad and finished on the podium at both Paris-Roubaix and the Tour of Flanders. All the best to him in the future. GCN editor Daniel Benson has also reported that Fabio Jakobsen is on his way to Team DSM next season. We won't have any official confirmation of that story until the Tour de France finishes, but it looks like we could have multiple high-profile sprinters changing teams next year. Team DSM have been busy because they've also secured exciting young climber Max Poole until 2027. Poole was an impressive 4th at the Tour of Romandie earlier this year. Okay, that's all we have time for this week. Enjoy your racing, and we'll see you at the same time on next week's show. Bye for now.